Tell me about tell me about some of those big rock moments. You kept mentioning this big rock and the rocks underneath and causing a tumultuous environment. You know, tell me about some of the times in your life you've had to deal with that. Maybe not
Yeah,
the same exact turmoil, but how, yeah, boy, along your float, a couple
yeah.
times you hit, some spots like that.
um, so in 2019, I guess it would be better to start probably by 2018. 2018, I was working at Russellville, and this was year 4 of my career. I'd been coaching. This was the 4th year of my being paid to be a coach career, and I I worked for a really good man. His name's Jeff Weaver, and he really is a great man. He's a brilliant offensive minded coach, and he had been the offense coordinator for Greenwood under Rick Jones when and they're the ones that made Greenwood what Greenwood is. They laid the foundation and built it up and all these things and I had tried to get a job at Greenwood early in my career and had been graciously turned away. But Rick had been so, and I mean graciously turned away because Rick Jones has helped me get every single job that I've ever gotten, and he's been a great mentor to me. And he helped me get the job with Jeff because Jeff had worked with him, and um, I had been there working for Jeff for 2 years, and um, and learned a ton about football. I really feel like Russellville with Coach Weaver and then Coach Todd Wood being there as the defensive coordinator. I truly feel like that was my you know college education and how to coach football and to do certain things certain ways and they really helped me get really precise with how to coach, and it was a great experience. But I had this urge and this want um, to be on a high school staff. I was the high school strength conditioning coach, but I wasn't a position coach on the high school staff. And Coach Weaver and I had a conversation, and I asked him. I said, "How long is it going to be until I'm considered for a varsity position?" And he did a really graceful thing and was honest with me. He said, "Dalton, I don't see that happening for about 5 more years." And I uh, did not take that as well as I should have, to be honest. It really hurt my feelings because I felt like with how I worked, I felt like I had earned because of my busyness that I should be achieving these things, this constant need to achieve. Um, I felt like I should be moved up to the high school staff. Um, and I look back at that and I'm so glad Jeff was so gracious with me um, in those times because um, I I'm very much was not patient, and that comes with the need to achieve and not knowing how to be still and listen. And now, luckily, the Lord still blessed me because Lance Parker hired me that spring to be on his high school staff. And so I ended up leaving Russellville to go and chase high school football.
That
And
was at Sheridan, right?
yeah, so we go to
Yeah.
Sheridan, and that ends up being a tremendous blessing. We end up winning. Um, we end up having a winning record at Sheridan. We end up beating El Dorado for the first time in school history. Grown men crying on the field, all the things. It's a really magical season, and I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying coming to work. The men I worked with, Chasen McCarthy, Patrick Rowe, Lance Parker, G Gardner, Tony Bone, all these guys that were there, and some of them are still there. Um, it was such a great time for me because it wasn't a pretty field house. We had a really gritty team. We ran power counter, and we just said, we're going to run the ball. Forget that passing stuff. We don't really need it or want to do it, and all these different things. But it was great to just be around them and to learn from them. And so it was another learning curve for me on how to be a great coach and to be around such good men while I was doing it. But in my heart, I was still chasing football. And Friday night, last Friday of the season, we're playing Pine Bluff in Sheridan. It's the first playoff game Sheridan's earned to host a playoff game there in many, many years and all these different things. And we play Pine Bluff, and Pine Bluff, is a great historic program and all these different things. And we end up losing to them 49-48 in double overtime. And it was heartbreaking because it put an end to such a magical year where, man, it was hard. It was hard work, and we were getting kids to do things that they had never done before, or at certain points didn't believe that they could do. And, we were showing people that this is a place that could win and all these different things, but it takes this amount to win there and all these different things. And it was such a great time. And my dad and mom drove down there to watch me coach that game. And my sister came with them and brought her little boy and all. So my family's there and all these different things. And that's on Friday night. And then my mom, the next day, I'm licking my wounds, because we're out of it and all the things. My mom texts me, says, "Hey, your dad's not feeling very good. We might take him to the hospital and all this stuff." And they live about 3 hours from Sheridan. So they drove, Dad drove the bus route, drove all the way down to Sheridan, drove all the way back all in the same night and all these different things. And he had gone out to split some wood and came back in and said, "Hey, I don't feel all that good or whatever. Like I'm going to go, just kind of lay down or whatever." And so then they take him to the hospital that night, and they say, "Hey, you got, some blood work's a little weird or whatever. So we're going to give you some antibiotics and we're going to send you home, go to your doctor on Monday," and all this kind of stuff. So mom texted me all that and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, okay, well, and this is bad. This is Dalton not being a great son, because this was my response. They said, "Hey, if something weird happens, we're going to take him to the hospital." And I said, "Okay, well, football season is over. So if I need to take some days off, I can take some days off." And it's like, okay, I sit back and I look at that and I hear myself say those words out loud. And I'm like, this is the man that has given you his life to make sure that you have a better opportunity. And because football season's over, you can go to the hospital with him. What are you doing? What are you chasing? Where is your heart at? This man has sacrificed everything for you. What are you doing? And so I, don't really hear anything on Sunday. Monday morning, I'm walking into East End Middle School to go teach. And my mom calls me and says, "Dalton, they're airlifting your dad to Little Rock. Something's really wrong. You need to meet them there. They're going to be at Baptist in North Little Rock." I go in, I write the week's lesson plan, a week's worth of lesson plan on the whiteboard, big old whiteboard, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And I go to the front office and I say, "They're airlifting my dad to Little Rock right now. I have to leave. Lesson plans on the board." And there was a lady there at Sheridan, and she and I bonded over being Alabama fans. And she was there, and she wasn't a receptionist. She was a teacher. She was in my same PLC and everything, but she was just that teacher that the administration leaned on because She had been a teacher for 30 years. She'd been a basketball coach, athletic director. She'd done every part of being in a school district. She had a tremendous amount of experience.
Who is this?
I can see her face.
That's okay. I was wondering if I knew her because
You
I
may,
had
yeah,
time
you
to
may
share it
have. You may
later,
have
but
known
I
her.
just wanted to. Yeah, that's okay. Go ahead.
I can't remember, but
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
but she's in there, and I'm telling her all this stuff, and she goes, "Go, we'll take care of it. Don't worry about it." And so I have a '99 Subaru Forester, and it had some miles on it, but that little boxer engine, I had that thing screaming to North Little Rock. I think, and I wasn't looking at the speedometer. I was just driving, and luckily, East End Middle School is built right on the highway that turns into the interstate, going back north into Little Rock, and so it took me about 20 minutes when it should have took me about 45. It took me about 20 minutes to get there, and he beat me by about 30 seconds into the ER. I'm seeing the helicopter land as I'm parking my car and running into the emergency room. And after it's all said and done, I asked Dad, okay, like, what's the last thing you remember? And he said, I remember flying in the helicopter. And I remember landing. And after that, I don't remember anything until I woke up. And I say that to say, like, when we're in the ER, Dad just thinks he's regular sick. He thinks it's all too much and all the things or whatever. He's acting that way. And I'm there, and the nurses are getting all of them hooked up, and they're taking the blood pressure and all these things. And he's like, I got to use the bathroom. I got to use the bathroom. I got to use the bathroom. And the nurses look at me and they say, you cannot get him out of this bed. He'll have a catheter in a minute. Like it'll be fine. Like, but he cannot get out of this bed, because if he gets out of this bed, his blood pressure is so low that if he gets out of this bed, he'll pass out and we can't get him back in the bed. And so it's like, at this point, there's this official shift in my dad no longer is wearing Superman cape that I've seen him wear my whole life. And I have to tell him, no, you're staying in this bed. You're not going to get up. And I've only talked to him twice in my life like that. And that's such a hard transition for a son. To have to go through, to see the guy that has provided for you your whole life and has done everything and could do everything, and when things that you couldn't do, Dad, I can't do this, he does with such ease. I used to get so mad at him because growing up, my job was to split and stack the wood. And I'd get a piece, and whether it was, I didn't see a knot in the log, or I didn't see whatever, I couldn't read the grain right or whatever, or it just didn't have enough oomph to get it. There were these logs that I felt like I'm out here for 30 minutes trying to split this log, and I've got to split all of this. So this needs to be done in a timely manner, or I'm not going to get this done. And finally, and Dad's over there doing the kindling. He's splitting the little stuff, which is easier but it's also more dangerous, because your hands and fingers are there. And I've almost cut fingers off doing that if you're not careful. And you have to call him over, say, Dad, I can't do this by myself. And he would do it the first swing. And I would get so mad. I'm like, golly, I hate that. He makes it look so easy. Just that competitiveness of like, like you made that look so easy. I've been over here struggling so much.
Isn't that, it's so amazing. It's miraculous.
Yeah.
How life gives us every
The
day
image.
a picture. That's right. When we struggle and put ourselves through absolute agony, and all we have to do is ask.
Yeah.
You haven't received because you haven't asked.
Yeah. And he would just look at me and say, I've been doing it for a long time. I know what to look for. I know what to see. And then he would teach me. He would show me where, and as a
Mm,
12-year-old, 13-year-old, you're like, don't show me. I don't want to look at it because you don't want to see the truth a lot of times.
right.
You don't,
Somebody
don't show me how easy it was
makes
because
me
it
feel
wasn't.
more stupid.
Yeah. But then he would show me like, hey, this is what you were doing and this is what you were thinking. But then this is
Mm,
over here. This is
mhm.
where the mall has to hit. This is what you should have done or whatever.
Yeah.
And so to go from seeing him as Superman,
Mhm.
and then they take him and they put him in ICU and they run all these tests and they're pumping him full of fluids and stuff, and putting antibiotics in him, and then he's got to go on a drip because he's starting to retain fluid. And then when you retain fluid on your chest, he went in, I think he weighed like 178 pounds. He ends up they put so much fluid into him, he ends up weighing close to 310 pounds at one point. And the reason he's retaining fluid is because his kidneys are failing. And because his kidneys are failing, he starts going into congestive heart failure. And all of this is happening because he's got streptococcus gangrene in his lymph nodes, and it's gotten into his bloodstream, and it's starting to eat away at his muscle mass in his back and in his arm. And I knew things were bad. I knew they were. But you don't, it doesn't sink in until after the first surgery. They go in, and his doctor comes in, and they take us into the little room. The nurse comes and gets us and says, "Hey, we need you guys to come to the family room." And you're still living in denial, because if everything's okay, they just tell you in the waiting room. But if they've got to take you to another room, and I'm just not. I'm not putting one and two together. I'm not adding it up like I should. Because mom's a nurse. I've seen these things at different points in my life. I've heard the stories. Dad's a pastor. We've been in hospitals my whole life. I've seen old people in a bed my whole life. Death is not something that I'm unfamiliar with. We've been to a dozen funerals by the time I was at 12. So it's not like this is something that I haven't seen. All right. It's not that I haven't held a little lady's hand while her husband's dying 3 feet away. But it doesn't become real until that doctor, I can still see him. He's standing there He comes in the door, he closes the door, stands in the corner of the room. He's got a Denver Broncos skull cap on. And he says, "This is what's happened." He lays it out. He says, your dad's got a 50% chance of walking out of here, and I don't think it's even that high. He said, we're going to have more surgeries, and he's going to have to go on dialysis because his kidneys are failing. They're not operating. And we're going to have to leave him open because if we sew him back up, all that stuff's just going to keep breathing in there. He's not going to make it. So he's going to have to. He's got these. Yeah, he's got these huge gashes. He looked like he'd been attacked by a T-Rex on Jurassic Park because he was just filleted open. And what they'll have to do is they'll have to go in and change those bandages. They'll have to go in and pull out the gauze and change that out. But he'll have to be open for all of the surgeries until we get till the end of this, is how he put it. Until we're at the end of this, we're going to have to leave him open. And he ends up going through 3 surgeries to clean all that out. And I stay at the hospital. And luckily I was living in Little Rock at the time, and I had an apartment. And so, my family's staying with me, and mom's got a bed in the room, and when I'm not there, she can go and get some sleep, or when I'm there, she can go and get some sleep and take a shower and do all the things at my apartment, and then she stays there at night with him. And God bless those little nurses. I mean, they did such a good job of doing their jobs. But I don't want to skip over this. I need to tell this part because this is really where rubber hits the road. Is after he said, your dad's got a 50% chance to live. I quit hearing everything else. And I turned into that 5-year-old boy that needed his dad. And I lost it. He left the room, and it was just us. And I remember screaming so loud. And I remember screaming, I'm not ready for this. And I remember being so angry. I was so angry because the man who was my grandfather in my heart and in my mind, his name is Al Helwig, and he had gotten diagnosed with prostate cancer earlier that year. And I remember praying, and I said, Lord, I'm not ready for this. I can't lose him right now. I can't. I'm not ready for him and Dad. I can't. I'm not prepared enough to go through life without them. So please don't take them from me right now. And Mr. Al ends up having surgery and going through chemo, and he ends up pulling it out, and he's still with us, and we get to kind of laugh about our ailments of his prostate cancer and me losing my colon and all the issues that come with that. We got to get to laugh with each other about it now, but I remember having that conversation with the Lord at that time. I said, please don't take them from me because I'm not ready. And I remember being so angry in that hospital because I said, I told you I wasn't ready for this. I said, I'm not ready. I can't be the guy that he is. And I remember I said, I got to get out of this room. And I remember going outside, him walking up onto this hill and sitting next to this tree for about 15 minutes. And I remember being so angry with the Lord. And just sitting there and being still and realizing that the football doesn't matter. And if it doesn't matter in that moment, it doesn't matter. And on that hill, he said, what are you going to do with me? What are you going to do with me? Because I've been sitting here with you every day and every minute, waiting for you to want to have the relationship that I want to have with you. And the man that has shown you my love your whole life is in there fighting for his life. And you're sitting here telling me that you can't lose him, and I'm right here. So what are you going to do? And I said, well, I don't have anything else. You're all I have right now, because anybody else I would go to I can't go to. And he said, okay, well, here's what you're going to do. You're going to be positive. I had read a study in college, and it was talking about people's recovery. We're trying to be a good coach and all these things to learn. And injuries are a part of life. And I'm going to say it like that because it's not. I don't want to say it's part of football or part of soccer or part of athletics. Injuries are part of life. We live in an imperfect world with imperfect bodies. Things are going to happen. You're going to have aches and pains, and it's going to hurt. So I was reading the study, and the study was talking about how if an athlete or a person went into surgery and the surgery team and the nurses and the people around them in their unconscious state spoke positively about what was happening, even if things were bad, like 15% bad, they had a remarkable change on the outcome. And he said, here's what you're going to do. You're going to go in there, you're going to go be who you're supposed to be. And you're going to tell everybody, we need to call this person, this person, this person, this person. We got to get everybody we know from Bible college to Quanah, Texas, to Ozark, Arkansas, and everywhere in between. You got to get people praying. So we made a list. My mom and I, we sat down. And I said, I'm calling these people, and you're calling these people. She said, okay. I said, you get them, we got to get them to start praying. If they want to come, they can come. But we got to get people praying. And the second thing that we're going to do is when we're in the room with him, he is only going to hear positive things, that he is doing a good job, and we're going to verbalize it. We're going to say it out loud. He's doing a good job. He is fighting his tail off. Don't you quit. You keep doing what you're doing. You keep being who you're supposed to be and who you've been your whole life. And you don't you quit on this. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to be positive. We're going to believe that he's going to come out of this. Until we lay him in the arms of Jesus, we're going to believe he's going to make it. And we're going to speak that into existence. And I called uh, a really good friend of his that we worked with him building playgrounds when I was in college. Dad had kind of taken a hiatus from preaching for a few years, and we worked construction together during college. And I called Stephen and I said, Stephen, things are bad, and I don't know if he's going to make it. And he said, I'm on my way. I'll be there. And so he drives from Tulsa, Oklahoma to North Little Rock, and he's there the next morning. He said, Dalton, it's going to be fine. On the phone when I called him, he said, Dalton, he's going to be fine. We're going to pray about this, and he's going to be good. The Lord's going to take care of this. This isn't the end of it. And he gets there, and Steven, he looks like the fridge. I mean, he's just this mountain of a man. He's 6'4" and 320 pounds, and he can move and dance, and he's just this big jolly guy. And and he really is the epitome of charismatic. And I remember him being in the hospital room, and we're all there, and Dad's got tubes everywhere and all the things. And he looks at him and he goes, hey, you're going to be all right, man. We're going to pray, and it's going to be okay. And we prayed, and he holds my hand, and he prays the Lord over him. And then when he gets done praying, he looks at me and goes, hey, tell me when he's going home. And he leaves. He just leaves. He doesn't stick around. He doesn't say, what do you need or whatever. He goes, he'll be all right, see you, and drives back to Tulsa. I mean, he drove to North Little Rock to say a prayer, pat me on the back, and went home, because the faith that he had was, he's walking out, Dalton. We've done our part. You're going to be positive. You're going to help your mom and your sister. I've done what I can do. Lord will take care of the rest. See you, man. Call me when he's going home. And to see that, and this is a guy, we had worked together, sweat, blood, and tears. They had gone to Bible college together. My dad had saved his life. They went camping one time out on the Continental Divide out there in Colorado. And like I said, Stephen's a big guy. Well, altitude sickness, when you're a big person, it affects you so much more than which is why, like, when you go to those altitudes, like, you've got some big mammals, but most of the life out there is really small, because it takes so much to you've got to be efficient with your oxygen out there. So you either got to be really big or you got to be really small. There's not this in-between stuff. And Stephen, it whipped him. And dad basically like just took care of him that whole camping trip, and carried all the things and all this kind of stuff. And they had a tight bond together. Their relationship was tight. And he just said, all right, tell me when he goes home. And to see that kind of faith in that moment. And when I had called him on the phone, he said, Dalton, it's going to be okay. Like this, he's going to be fine. He's going to come out of this. And then his other college buddy, Houston Myers, mom called him. And Houston, he's such a big-hearted man, and he's so passionate about Christ. But he was overwhelmed in the moment. And he calls his son Taylor. And Taylor and I had grown up together a little bit, all this kind of stuff. And he's devastated when he calls his son to tell him about it. And Taylor's like, well, Dad, it's fine. When have you ever known Mr. Rusty to quit on anything? Like, he's going to make it. It's going to be fine. And so to have these moments of faith in all of these different things in this such hard time and dark place, they were things that I held on to like I needed my next heartbeat. I mean, I held on to them and praying and doing all these things, and He ends up going through the surgeries. He ends up staying in ICU for about 2 weeks. And he finally wakes up. He had gone in on a Monday. And he woke up not the Wednesday of not the Wednesday of that week, but the following Wednesday. He had been under. He'd been in a medically induced coma for most of it. And he wakes up and he sees my mom sitting next to him. I had it was early in the morning, and I had gone home to get some sleep, and he looks at her and goes, "What day is it?" And she says, "Well, it's Wednesday." And he goes, "So I've been out for 2 days?" She goes, "No, Rusty, you've been out for 9 days. It's like you've been asleep for over a week." And he spends the next 3 or 4 days really kind of coming back out of it because, when you go through something so traumatic as that, you've got all these different drugs, and he's under a lot of pain medication and all these different things. And later that year, he talks to me about, like, he remembers these dreams that he had during that time of when he was having to physically fight demons that were attacking him, and how tired he was, and how he just wanted to stop, but he couldn't. He said, "I just couldn't stop. I couldn't quit." And being in that with him, holding his hand, holding him as his bandage gets changed, hearing him go through the pain of all of that, because even out of a coma or in a medically induced coma, he still feels it. And there's still sounds he would make because of how painful it was. It put me in a place where the only thing that, I'm not going to say it was comfort, because there's not comfort in that moment. There's not. You're just in it. You're in it. But the only place where you can find your footing is in Christ. The only place that you can find footing is you say, "Holy Spirit, you wrap me up and hold me because I'm about to fall apart." And so now every time I look at him, when we go canoeing, or when we go cut firewood, or when he comes to watch me coach, or if we're just hanging out by the fire pit, I say to myself, "Thank you for giving me more time, because you could have took it." And there's days my mind and heart aren't in the right place, and I'm like, "Lord, just do it already." Like, can we just go on? Because I just get so downtrodden and heartbroken over either what I see in the world or what I have in my personal life, and it's like, can you just come on with it? I
Yeah.
want to come home.
Hmm.
And I can't imagine how easy that would have been for him in that moment of just saying, "Lord, just take me.
Hmm.
I'm tired." You know, but it puts it in perspective that even when, you know, you know, I see my dad as a great dad, not because he gave me what I wanted, but because he showed me how Christ was supposed to love and how Christ loved me. He was a visual representation of Christ loving me. But at the end of the day, he's just a reflection. And so my testimony is, I I want a relationship with Christ, because I know that he's not the reflection, he's the real deal. And the love that I have for my earthly father, and the things that he's taught me are so great because he leans on Christ and that he lives that out. And that's the greatest blessing that he's ever given me is that, hey, it's not me, it's him. And in that moment, I had to learn that. I had to learn, hey, it's between you and Christ, because one of these days he's not going to be there anymore. And I don't think that I ever necessarily my relationship with Christ was dependent upon my dad or dependent upon my dad being a pastor. But it was a great blessing to see my dad's relationship with Christ because he chose to answer his calling. And so since then, even though I've gone through other turmoils and all of those other things, to me, it's been a really big paradigm shift of what my focus is supposed to be and what am I doing with my life. And it's changed not only how I view myself, but it's changed how I view my career. Because football is not what I teach. Football is not what I coach. Football is the curriculum I teach to lead people to Christ. I have to go teach. Yeah, I have to go teach. They had to pay me to do all the other stuff, part of my job. But the part that I do for free is when I deal with people, I want to show them Christ. And coaching is how I do it. It's my mission field. And
that's right. I read a great book.
Yeah.
Titled Soccer Field, Mission Field. Yeah. I love that you said that.
Yeah. And because of that, to me, everybody gives Reed Jones a hard time because when he would win state championships, he would get to go talk at the state clinic. And he would always talk about the same thing, which is their culture. The culture that they built there at Greenwood, the things that they did to help build that culture and build the relationships with the people. And all those coaches would get pissed off about it because they're like, I don't want to hear about that. I want to hear about what plays you run. And I wanted to say, look, we got people in this room that run the I formation, the wishbone, the flex bone, the wing T, the double wing, the spread, the Gus Malzahn spread, the Rich Rodriguez spread. I mean, we got 20 different offensive schemes in here. Is it X's and O's? Because I don't think so. It's not. And if the guy that's got a dozen state championships or however many he has is up there telling you this is the most important thing, it's probably
maybe you want to listen. You might want to write it down.
Like this is it, And with Rick and knowing Rick does it like that because that's what Christ has put on his heart.
Yeah.
That is it. It doesn't matter. The systems don't matter. We can run the double wing or the spread or whatever we want to run. It doesn't matter. The X's and O's don't matter. How you treat people, how you lead people, and can they see Christ in you even if you don't have to use the words or can't use the words? Can they see it in the actions? Is Christ in your actions?